We have big history to talk about today. Long history of maybe 4,200 something years, and we only have about 2 hours and a half, right? That's what we have. Okay, so we try to go over it very quickly as soon as the mic will be ready. I will start without the mic, okay, Shannon?
Yeah.
I will speak out loud.
Thank you.
Okay. So, welcome to the first ever lunch and learn. At least mine. So again, 4,200 or 4,200 years ago, the land of Israel, Palestine, Holy Land, anyone can call it whatever you want to call it, was named, in the biblical times it was named Canaan. Have you heard of the word of the name Canaan? Okay, good. There was Can you see the letters? Can you see the letters? Yeah. Can you read the letters? Okay. At the time, that was also called. Have you heard of the Bronze era? So it's this time that I'm talking about was also called the Late Bronze era. So Canaan was part of It was an autonomy. What's the word? I think the word is subordinate. Subordinate.
Subordinated.
Right? To Egypt, to big Egypt. Egypt was already an empire. It was big. It controlled Canaan as well. And there were many different tribes, many different people in Canaan. Jews were among them. Jews actually came out of the common people, and what distinguished the Jewish tribes or the Jewish people out of the others in Canaan, the Canaanites, was being monotheistic, believing in one God, and not being nomads. So they were maybe the only ones who weren't nomads. They built their houses, they built their places. Most of the people in Canaan at that time invested more time, energy, and money in their graves and graveyards than in their homes. They didn't build homes. Okay? And the Jews did build their homes, and they believed in one God. They were actually the first ones to bring this word about believing in one God. There was a big famine, big drought in Canaan, and many people left, including the sons of Jacob. Who were the sons of Jacob? Who was Jacob?
Israel.
Jacob, aka Israel, right? He was he's considered one of the fathers of the Jewish nation. He had 12 sons. Can you name the sons of Jacob?
Some of them.
I can't. So I have it here. I actually could remember it, but I didn't want to embarrass myself in front of you. So Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zvulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. Now, you all know what he tried to do to Joseph. Why did he do it? Do you remember? Why did they want to sell him?
Jealous.
Not because they needed money, because
he dreamed a lot.
he dreamed a lot, and he knew what he was dreaming, which is even more important. But he was the most successful child in the family. He was the favorite one, and they were jealous of him. So they decided to sell him. Am I speaking?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
And then, when it all happened, when the famine started to happen, they decided to move as a big family to Egypt. what they didn't know back then was that Joseph became a big shot in Egypt, right? They met him there and they started integrating into the Egyptian society. It's important to say before we start talking about Egypt that in Canaan back then there were many, they call them invaders, or people who came from different places to live in Canaan with the Jews, with the others, mostly nomad tribes. One of them is a name that you maybe could recognize today, came from Greek or Italy. Different historians say different things. They were called the Plishtim. Back then, this was derived into Palestine and Palestinians. We will talk about his name, but they came with their boats from the European area of Greece and Italy. Okay. Many years later, many generations passed. Joseph was no longer the closest advisor to Pharaoh, to the king of Egypt. The Egyptians started distinguishing themselves from the Jews, from the Hebrew people. We don't do the same thing. We don't believe in your God. You believe in a different God, and started enslaving the Jews. The Jews actually became slaves in Egypt, and that's what made Moses take the leadership and decide to get his people back in Israel. Now, the sons of Jacob were still there, right? But they were already not 12 sons, but they were already 12 tribes or big families. Who were actually the people of Israel. That's why they named the sons of Israel as the people of Israel. They went all together. We'll not tell the story of how Moses managed to convince the Egyptian king to let them go. It wasn't easy to make it shorter, but he managed to do it, and then there was the Exodus. 4 years the Israelites, or the sons of Israel, were wandering the desert and looking for the land of Israel. Not the best session of navigation in history, shows the map, but they eventually ended up in the land of Israel. What were two big moments? So in Hebrew there's a term, a biblical moment. Two big moments which had a big influence to the next generations. What were the two big moments?
Ten Commandments. Receiving the Decalogue.
Yeah, the first one is it's called the Mount Sinai event. So you all know probably, right? Moses went up to Mount Sinai to bring not only the Ten Commandments, he actually wrote down the entire Torah, the books of Moses. Went back, wasn't happy with what he saw that the people did, broke the commandments, the tablets, went up, went down. In the Jewish culture and Jewish religion, it's considered the moment, or the Mount Sinai event, it's considered the moment where the people of Israel, the nation of Israel was formed. Okay, we weren't a nation before that. We went out of it as a nation. That's why it's such a big moment. Another big moment is the story. I don't know if you heard the story of Joshua's spies. I don't know if that's how you call it.
Yeah.
Okay, what happened there? Can anyone tell me what happened in that story? Okay, I will tell you. So Joshua didn't know what's in Israel. He was Joshua and Moses. They didn't know what they're going towards. And they decided to send some spies to go and spy after the land and see if there is a good land to grow stuff, if the people are nice and welcoming, and what it's going to be when we go there. And they came back, and what did they say to Joshua?
No chances to conquer this land?
No chances, people, they are giants, right?
Yeah.
The land is awful, you can't grow anything. And obviously they lied. And because they lied, this happened, I think I told you about it in the Hebrew calendar talk, but this happened on the day, the 9th day of the Hebrew month of Av. So it's Tisha B'Av, 9th day of Av, and God was very angry at this moment, and he said, you know what, that's what you did, you lied, you didn't trust me. And now you're going to have, on this day, for generations to come, you're going to have a cry for generations. That's how it said, a cry for generations. And I think, again, I'm repeating it, but ever since many difficult events or tragic events in the history of the Jewish people, even the Israeli people, happened, including some big events during the Holocaust, including the destruction of the first temple and the second temple. So we still fast till these days on this day of Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of Av, one of the main fasts. Okay. And then the sons of Israel went into Israel and started their own kingdom. So it was the first time that the Jewish people had their own kingdom and weren't just citizens or slaves in another country. It was the land was divided. Each tribe received some kind of a land. It depends on its size. It depends on its role in the management of the kingdom. By the way, some of the, maybe you can see, okay, there is the Jordan River here, right, in red.
Mhm.
See the Dead Sea is in the Jordan River. Unlike in this time of history, the Kingdom of Israel included also the east bank of the Jordan River, and two tribes stayed in the east bank of the Jordan River. Actually, it was 2.5, because one tribe was split to keep the connection with those two tribes who stayed behind in the east bank. There were three main kings of the kingdom of the United Kingdom of Israel. Do you know names of major kings in the history of the Kingdom of Israel? One of them you have to know. King David. King David was the second one. Right before him, his immediate predecessor was Saul, and his immediate successor was obviously his son, King Solomon. So King David declared Jerusalem as
His capital?
the capital of the Kingdom of Israel. Back then, when they argue about Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, go back thousands of years ago and see that it was already in that status. And King Solomon, what did King Solomon did in Jerusalem? Built the Solomon's Temple, which is known now as
The first one.
the first temple. Back then it wasn't known as the first temple. And it really made Israel the religious center and spiritual center of the kingdom of Israel. Then there was the Assyrian captivity. So what happened is the Assyrian Empire not to be mixed with the Syria, but a different nation, conquered the northern, you can see on the map, oh, sorry, so you know what? Yeah, it's upside down. First, what happened is Solomon's son. Who was Solomon's son? Rehoboam, exactly. I never know how you say it in English, so thank you for that. Rehoboam, in Hebrew you say Rehavam, which means a wide nation. Makes more sense, right? He was, when King Solomon died, many of the tribes said it's a good opportunity for us to get lower taxes and be treated better by the kingdom, by the government. And they went to Rehoboam, and asked, can you make our life easier? And his advisor said a very famous sentence. They said, be kind to them today and they will be kind to you forever. Which means they will be loyal to you forever. And you know how in the cartoons that you have a devil and an angel? So the devil said, or Rehoboam said to himself, you know what? No, my father was tough with you, I'm going to be even tougher. Okay, I'm going to rise the taxes, I'm going to do everything harder for you, and that will make you be loyal to me, not some other tactic. And what happened? They decided to tear apart the kingdom. So many of the tribes decided to flee, and the tribes of Benjamin and Judah decided, they were in the southern part of the land, and they decided to have a new kingdom established, the kingdom of Judah or Judea or Yehuda is also the name of the tribe, also the name of one of the sons of Israel. And then there was the Assyrian captivity. The Assyrian captivity was the conquest of the occupation of the kingdom of Israel in the north, even though when the two kingdoms were split, the kingdom of Israel was a real powerhouse. It was a real major entity in the region. It was surely stronger than Judah, but they managed to conquer, they tried to conquer the two lands, the two kingdoms, but they only managed to conquer Israel. So there was only one Jewish kingdom in the land. It was the kingdom of Judah. Yeah. Okay, so the king who was in charge of the kingdom of Judea when they split from the kingdom of Israel was named Jeroboam, or in Hebrew it's Yerovam, which means multiple nation. Hebrew names have meaning, it's not the English name. Okay? So there was a big moment there. The King Solomon temple still stood in Judea, and then there was the siege of Babylon, the Babylonian Empire. So the kingdom of Judea survived as an independent kingdom, an independent entity for how many years by themselves without the kingdom of Israel? 130 years it was stood by itself there until the Babylonian came, and it's known as the Babylonian exile, which means the Babylonians, wow, it's a tough word to say in English. In Hebrew it's Babel. I wonder how it is in Babylonian. They exiled all the Jews, or most of the Jews, to what is now Iraq or Babylon. And some of them moved to the Galilee, some of them moved to other places. Many of them actually stayed in what was in the past the capital city of the Kingdom of Israel, of split Kingdom of Israel, which is Samaria. Have you heard of Samaria? And they changed their religion and changed their customs and changed many things in their culture, and they became the Samaritans. I don't know if you heard of the Samaritans. You must have heard of at least one Samaritan. So the Samaritans till this day practice a lot of the Jewish culture, the Jewish religion. They're practically considered Jewish in some ways. Yeah. So then started the Babylonian occupation. By the way, you have a very nice timeline on your tables, which shows you the different eras. During the Babylonian occupation, because it was a very cruel occupation, there was a major decline in the number of Jews in the land of Israel, but also in general there weren't many people who stayed to live there. They destroyed most of the land. That's why many people had to escape, to run away from there. And they destroyed the first temple in Jerusalem, which is, again, it happened on Tisha B'Av, and many people still, most of the Jews still fast over it. The Egyptians, which is something that you will see returning in history, the Egyptians, they didn't accept the Babylonian presence in the land because they kept saying it's supposed to be a native land and no other empire is supposed to conquer this land or occupy this land. They kept sending the Jews who stayed there to do revolts and fight against the Babylonian. It always ended with a loss, with a big massacre of the Jews, of the others who tried to revolt, to rebel. Yeah, and what ended the Babylonian exile? Or it's more, it's better to ask who ended the Babylonian exile? Cyrus. Cyrus wanted to, at least one of the stories said, Cyrus wanted the Jews to come back from Babylon to help him build the kingdom when the Persian Empire led by him occupied the land. And he helped the Jews who came back to build the second temple in Jerusalem. What Cyrus and his successors did on the land of Israel was to divide the land to a few different parts and have someone running the part, whether they were Jewish or other native people to the land, and it worked quite well. He gave everyone freedom of religion. Of course, the Jewish religion was the main monotheistic, or the only monotheistic religion back then, so it was quite easy. And then there was, again, who led the Hellenistic conquest?
Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great. Where was he from?
Macedonia.
Macedonia. Where is Macedonia?
Northern
That's
Greece.
a different discussion. I actually went to Macedonia to do some educational programs there, and they said, whatever you do, just don't say Macedonia. So I did it, because it's now called Republic of North Macedonia. They say if you say it formally, they could arrest you, the Greek could arrest you. So yeah, it would be a different lunch and learn about. Yeah, so during the Hellenistic time, there was not only an occupation, but it was also strong influence. You all know the Hellenistic culture and the way they enjoyed themselves, and it was really implemented into the land of Israel, into the Jewish people, into the others. And there was the Maccabees. Maccabees was a sect inside the Jewish community in the land at that time, and they decided to go to war and try to liberate the land, and it ended with almost the total destruction of their temple. And then they went into the temple to see what's left of it, and they found a, how do you call it, like an oil
Jar?
lamp,
Oil jar.
which was supposed to light the candles in the menorah in the temple for one day. They said, okay, we're going to light it for one day, and it lasted for
8.
8 days, and that's why we celebrate
Hanukkah.
So every time we talk about holidays that are from the Torah or the biblical times, and holidays that based on something that happened afterwards, Hanukkah is a great example of something that is not from the Torah, but still a holiday that we celebrate. Yeah. So one of the main families and the most powerful and influential families from the tribe of Judea was, in Hebrew it's called Heshmonaim, and in English it's called Hasmoneans. They took over the kingdom of Judea from the Hellenistic, when the Hellenistic got declined and their power was smaller. And that was actually the last time that the Jews had independent or independence on the land. Where there was, yeah. So this was, it wasn't only the last time that they had control of the land, it was also a time of real prosper and wealth and power of the Jewish people. And then it ended with the Roman Empire's occupation. Who was the Roman emperor?
There wasn't one then.
There was
There was-
Titus. Titus, is that?
Oh, Titus, yeah.
Titus? He was one of the generals who conquered Jerusalem and the kingdom of Judea. Of course, during this time, Jesus Christ was born in Bethlehem. By the way, do you know what Bethlehem means?
House of bread.
House of bread. In which language?
Armenia.
Hebrew. Bread, right? His whole house. And lechem is bread. Yeah, Jesus Christ was born in Bethlehem. The Great Revolt. So actually, when the Romans controlled the land, they did not destroy the Second Temple. They allowed the Jews to practice their religion, but then the Jews, like they always do, or always did a big revolt or rebelled and lost everything they had. Huge massacre, huge destruction. The Second Temple is destroyed again on Tisha B'Av, on the 9th day of Av. Yeah, so in the year 130, there was, have you heard of Bar Kokhba? You heard of Bar Kokhba? It was a very pretentious Jewish leader who thought, okay, we're going to liberate the land, and he started fighting with the Romans. And then that was the end of the Jewish era on the land. They decided not only we're not going to let them liberate the land, we're going to kick them out, and they're not going to stay in Israel, on the land of Israel. And they named Jerusalem. You know what they named Jerusalem? It was called Ilia Capitolina. Don't know if you heard the name of Ilia Capitolina. And they changed the name of the entire land to Syria Palestina. So Syria Palestina included the land of Syria as we know it right now until the southwest side, which was inhabited by the Plishtim that we mentioned earlier, now known as Syria Palestina after them. So it was all the way there, and that's a very important moment to understand the history of naming of the land, of naming of. We'll get to the conflict in a later stage, but it's very important to understand. Byzantine era. The special thing for you guys about the Byzantine era, it was the first time that it was really Constantinus, the Caesar, the Roman Caesar, really acknowledged Christianity to be the major or the official religion of the land, of the region actually, and there was a big struggle for the Jewish communities. By the way, most of the Jewish communities back then were still living in the Galilee area. Can anyone point the Galilee area on your map? I give you a hint. The small lake you see there is the Sea of Galilee. Okay? So Galilee is in the north of the land. That's where most Jews stayed to live. And then there was a revolt of the Samaritans. And actually, an interesting thing that happened back then is the Persians wanted to go back to the land and conquer it. And who do you think helped them? The Jews. The Jews preferred the Persians, who were good to them, and they tried to help them from within the land, within the country, to reconquer the land, and once again they paid for it. The attempt failed, and they paid for it. It was a huge massacre, and again the number of Jews in the land is declining. Okay, 7th century. The first time Arabs are going to get into the land. What happened? Islam, the religion of the Muslims, was born back in, where was it? Saudi Arabia. And many Arab tribes from the Arab Peninsula or Saudi Arabia area decided they're going for a conquest, and they're going to conquer the entire area. So they invaded the land of Israel and conquered it from the Christians. Yeah. That at that time, because there were both the Jews and the Christians were downgraded into a second-grade citizens in their country, they decided to unite and to try to fight against the Arab Caliphate, with not much success, unfortunately. Crusader era, you probably know everything you need to know about the Crusader era, right? So later you teach me, please, because you probably know a lot about it. But that was also era. So the Mamluk, have you heard of the Mamluk? The Mamluks are a very interesting story of slaves, soldiers of the Egyptian army who were very low status, very second or third grade status in Egypt, in the Egyptian army. And then one day they thought to themselves, we're so strong and we're so well trained and we're so many here. Why won't we just take control of our fate and do something? And they decided to go and conquer the land of Israel. They actually conquered, again, they conquered all the part from Syria to Egypt, and in the middle there was a Gaza Gaza area, which is right here. You see? And they decided to make it their capital, the capital city, mostly because it has access to the Mediterranean, and so therefore it has such a great importance. Because they were converts, they weren't born Muslims, they converted to Islam by the Egyptian military. Upon joining the Egyptian military, they wanted to prove they're more fanatic and more Muslims than anyone else, so they were really fanatic about it, and it affected the way they treated non-Muslims in the land. Ottoman Empire was the longest rule on the land. So both they had great relationship with the Jewish communities, and they had control of many different, the Ottoman Empire was quite big, and many of the lands of the countries that the Ottoman Empire controlled at that time included large Jewish communities, and they allowed moving between countries, between lands. So many of the Jewish communities saw a great opportunity and moved to the land of Israel. And it started the large scale immigration to the land of Israel by the Jewish people, which was the first days of a movement that is called Zionism. Have you heard of the movement that's called Zionism? It started back in the 18th century. What does it mean? What does Zionism mean? What does Zion mean?
Homeland for the Jewish people.
Right, but specifically, Zion is...
Mount Zion.
Mount Zion is in Zion. Where is Zion? Zion is actually, it's kind of confusing because it's the biblical name of both Jerusalem and the land of Israel in general. So Zionism was actually the movement that aspired to get the Jews back to their homeland. The homeland is Jerusalem, the land of Israel. And it was born back then. And they lost, of course, the Ottoman, the Turkish military lost the World War. They were amongst the losing side of World War I, and then started the British mandate. What's actually the British mandate? Have you heard of the British mandate? Okay, what does it actually mean? What's the mandate? So, it was an mandate, can I use it was a mandate, an approval given to the British Empire, the United Kingdom, to do some kind of a transition after they won, they liberated the land, they do a transition and establish a homeland for the Jewish people. Have you heard of the Balfour Declaration?
Yeah.
So 1917, right a few weeks before the World War ended, one of the British leaders sent a letter to the Jews saying, once we win the war, we're going to support a homeland rebuild on the land of Israel. And that was the main purpose of the British mandate, to do a transition between the Ottoman Empire back, thousands of years back, to a kingdom of Israel, to a homeland of any kind for the Jews. Of course, it was before the Holocaust, before many other things happened in Europe. The reason why it got shifted in some way is because then the Arabs who lived on the land started saying, why aren't we getting a homeland? Why do they get to start their own kingdom? We've been living here since the 7th century. We want to have a country here too. And not only that, we don't want them here. They were counting on, again, having a big empire between Syria and Lebanon and Jordan and Palestine, or the land of Israel, and Egypt. So they said, why do we let the Jews interrupt our plans? So they started fighting both the Jews and the Brits, and so the plans have been changed a little bit. And in this time, there was a big immigration of Jewish people, mostly from Europe, to the land of Israel to help rebuilding the country, or the land, or the kingdom, maybe. And Hitler gained control of Germany, so it also pushed many people to move from Europe. Many of them, by the way, moved illegally, because at some point the Brits said, no more. We're not sure we're going to give you the land, so no more. Sounds like a soundtrack to and then November 29th, 1947 is a day that every Israeli child knows by heart and know what happened there. What happened was the partition plan. The UN said, okay, you know what? We're done fighting. No one of you, Arabs or Jews, are going to get the entire land. We're going to split it into half. And that's the partition plan. You get half, they get half. What happened then? The Jews said, yes, that's what we wanted, the homeland of our own. And the Arabs said, no, we're going to fight you. We want the entire land. And that's what caused the 1947-48 war, which is considered in Israel the independence war. In Arab culture, it's called the big disaster. Everybody, in Hebrew, you say everybody cries from where it hurts. So, yeah, it's naming too. After the partition plan, or following the partition plan, many different Arab countries kept attacking Israel, trying to prevent this resolution, to prevent it happening. The war started, and somewhere in the middle of the war, Israel, David Ben-Gurion, who we talked about, the first prime minister, decided, okay, I don't care, I'm not waiting anymore. He collected some parliament members who he chose, so some of them were his cousins, some of them were his brother-in-law, and said, okay, we're going to declare an independent country on the land of Israel, the state of Israel. What happened next? More countries joined the war, and it was a big war. Maybe you know the song about the Seven Nations Army. So Seven Nations armies attacked Israel, and Israel managed to not only make them withdraw, but also to conquer some of their lands. So Israel managed to expand the land, And it happened again in 1956. Again, Egypt attacked, and then we managed to expand our land. And then 67, the same. 67, by the way, it's even mentioned in your timeline. You asked me about the guy with one eye. 67 is considered an extremely successful war, but the one who got us into the most trouble. So 6 days war, right of the 6 days war. In 6 days, Israel managed to multiply the land by 4 times. So we had 4 times more land after 6 days of war. And it's a disaster, because then we didn't know what to do with this whole land. Some of them we managed to exchange for peace with Egypt, with Jordan, but some of them we're still stuck with to these days. We'll talk about it in later stage. And another thing that happened in this time was that the Arabs, who were mostly tribes who live in the land with no real connection between them, suddenly realized, okay, we need to do something. We need to unite and be one entity that fights for the land. And they decided to call themselves Palestinians, which is a brilliant move, because first they were in the historical Palestine, and it's a brilliant move because then people look at the map and say, oh, it was Palestine, and they're Palestinians, so it must mean that the land is there. So that kind of a closure to back then when the Plishtim came to the land, and the Romans decided to name the land Syria Palestina, and now there is a Palestine living next to us, claiming the rights for the land. Questions? Yeah, wait. Any questions not about the conflict? I just wanted to show up to the next session. That's why I'm. But if you have a question,
It's not about the conflict. It was who's the guy with the eye patch?
Okay, so this guy is.
My shot Diane.
Yeah, fair, nice.
It's close.
It's Moshe.
Moshe Dayan.
Moshe Dayan. He was a very important general in the Israeli military, and he was the general of the war, the 6 Days War, which is a big turning point in the history of Israel. Questions? Corrections. Maybe I was wrong in some part. Yeah.
So my other question is, so under the Ottoman Empire, the Jews were not secondary citizens? Like they were okay for those few hundred years in Israel?
Yes and no. So the Islam religion has a few rules about having non-Muslim as citizens of a Muslim-controlled country. That's one of the rules. So it is a second grade, but you have to protect them, you have to give them all the opportunities. So yes and no. But it was better than some eras before.
Under the Christians? Under...
You said it. Yeah. Romans and yeah. More questions? I hope you learned something. Yeah.
The Babylonian exile, it sounded like it was mostly an expulsion of the folks. It sounded like the occupation still allowed the Jews still to live there, or is it complete expulsion?
There were different times during the Persian occupation, but in general, the Persians were more pro different religions and allowing them to practice and allowing them to live in the land. They even gave roles of leadership to some Jewish leaders in some of the parts of the land.
So why would they call it an exile? It sounds like...
The Persian?
No, the Babylonian exile.
Oh, the Babylonian.
Why that term?
The Babylonian exile, oh, I thought you meant about the Persian.
No,
No, the Babylonians did not allow the
any Jews
Jews.
to stay.
No. They allowed some of them to stay, but they didn't allow them to practice their religion or to stay Jews in a way. So many of them had to move to different places. Did you guys learn anything new today? Some of you. Some of you didn't. Father Ziggy didn't because he was already. Thank you. Gracias.